Hi, and welcome back to Awfully Quiet. Today I want to bring a little bit of an uncomfortable take and a new perspective on what it means to be awfully quiet. I think these past few years, ever since running this show, I naturally gravitated towards solutions, tools, fixes, how to get seen, heard, taken seriously in the workplace as a quiet, introspective person. But today, especially at the beginning of a new year, I want to ask a more foundational question. Have we really understood why quiet is being misunderstood, misinterpreted in the first place, and how you end up in this box of stereotypes that you don't even belong in? Today is me taking a critical look at that, because if you're anything like me, you're starting this new year with ambitions to show up differently, to be more confident, to improve the way you speak, to build some of those skills you have identified as development opportunities. But unless you really understand what I'm about to share with you today, none of these things are really going to move the needle in the way you hoped. Because it turns out quiet isn't the innocent underdog that you thought it was. Before we get into it, I want to let you in on something. My quiet ambition for this show. Because I am not here trying to make you louder. I am trying to change the way your quiet is being understood at work. I want this to start changing your reality and eventually work culture. But in order for that to happen, it has to travel. If this idea is going to matter, it needs to reach the people it is for. So if an episode like this ever makes something click for you, please follow the show, rate it 5 stars, and pass it on to somebody who could benefit from listening to it too. That is how this work starts to make a difference, quietly. Where I want to start is by what makes quiet so uncomfortable for others at work. And it goes back to some of our evolutionary wiring. Long before meetings, office jobs, teams, humans lived and survived in small groups. And in those small groups, 3 things really mattered for survival. 1, alignment. Are you with us or against us? 2, predictability. Can I anticipate what you're going to do next? And 3, belonging. Are you safe to keep around? Understanding these 3 things really quickly was a survival skill. So when there is somebody in that group that you can't read, it creates risk, tension, cognitive load. It triggers an alarm. It creates uncertainty, ambiguity. And even though today our lives don't really depend on us reading the room anymore, our nervous systems still very much think they do. From an evolutionary perspective, loud signaling feels safe. When somebody at work thinks out loud, reacts immediately, speaks early in meetings, narrates their opinion, their intent is made super clear. Even if you disagree with them, you know where they stand, how they're feeling, what to expect next. Your brain doesn't need to work as hard. There is less guessing, less tension. Loudness reduces cognitive load. And what reduces cognitive load feels safe. Now, quiet, introspective, observant people do the opposite. They process internally, they pause, listen, they hold back until the thought is fully formed. And from the outside, that creates a signal gap. And the brain hates signal gaps. So what your coworkers do when they see you on mute, off camera, when they see you at your desk, deep working with your headphones on and a frown on your face, it creates tension. They don't know how to read you. And what happens when they don't know how to read you is they're making an assumption. They try and fill that gap. They try to interpret your behavior. And what happens quite naturally when you're trying to do that quickly, when the brain tries to fill that gap quickly to relieve the tension, to relieve the cognitive load, is it comes up with assumptions that are based on past experiences and workplace stereotypes. It doesn't need to be correct, it doesn't need to be the truth, but the brain fills the gap. And that is how you end up in that box. That is how you end up being the quiet one at work. Now, over time, all those little assumptions stack up. They feed into a bigger story. And that story becomes how people describe you, what they expect from you, and what they say about you when you're not in the room. And this is how quiet people end up in that box of being cold, distant, hard to read, not leadership material. And that is how you get stuck. That is how all those little assumptions become perception. and how perception turns into reputation. And in very modern terms, that becomes your personal brand. What people think of you, know about you, repeat about you. And suddenly you're not the one who thinks deeply, who has strong perspective, who sees what others miss, but you're the quiet one, the one who doesn't speak up, the one who doesn't collaborate, and the one who isn't really interested in career progression in the first place. That gap between who you really are and how you are read, understood, interpreted is what quietly shapes your career. I started this episode saying it is worthwhile naming the problem, really looking into why quiet is being misread in the workplace, why it is misunderstood. And what I want to do now is I don't want to jump into solutions right away. We're going to get there, but for now, I want you to pay attention. Look into how you are being read in the workplace. Try and look at yourself from the outside. If you didn't know that person's inner world, how would you read them? How would you interpret their behavior, how they carry themselves, how they show up in meetings, how they show up at work? And I think there's a lot of power in doing that. And I genuinely love to hear what comes up for you. You know that I will always be the first person who frames quiet as an advantage, a superpower, an edge. And it can be all of those things, but only if it is read the right way. That is the foundational element that I want to land with you at the start of this year. And then we're going into how to make that work, how to position yourself, how to influence the way you are being read and understood at work. See you next time.